This is the Dream Factory. George Crain reads the Romantics, Chapter 4. Romance is dead. This story is serial fiction. Please continue to listen to discover the progress of the college kid and his romantic gesture. Laura? He said. He smiled. Yes, she said. They hugged. She held him closer than most. He exhaled heavily, a jovial kind of sigh. So this place is packed, he said. It's usually not this bad. They were in a coffee shop. It was a large, light-filled space. The walls were brick and old enough to have an odd lightness to them. Their red was like tomato soup with cream stirred in. The walls were braced by a skeleton of heavy steel beams. The floor was concrete, dark and matte-colored after a decade of spilled coffee and soup. There were a dozen or more tables, every one occupied, strewn with books and coats, notebooks and loose paper, all of the expanding chaos at the center of student life. What do you want? He asked. I don't know, Laura said. Do they have a menu? Yeah, he said. He pointed to a board over the bar and the registers. There was a long list of things in handwritten script. I'll go with you, she said. It'll take me a minute to figure it out. What do you usually get? He asked. I don't know. A mocha, I guess, with low-fat milk? How about one of those? He said. He smiled. It was bright and almost innocent, like a boy's smile. Okay, she said. I guess I'll have that. Perfect, he said. If you wait here, we're more likely to get a table. It was a long line. By the time he had their coffee, Laura had settled at a tiny table in a crowded corner of the coffee shop. There was a large study group next to them. So what's your story? He asked. He looked at her. There was a slight frown at the edge of her mouth. That's a pretty broad question, she said. He smiled. Well, she said, I'm a student. I'm at the community college. Cool, he said. What do you study? Communications. Oh, cool, he said. That's got to be interesting. So much is changing with the internet and stuff. There's probably a lot going on in that. Yeah, it is, Laura said. A lot of people think communications is not a real major, but there's a lot going on. Thanks, she said. He smiled. She smiled back. How about you? She asked. What's your story? I'm a student too, he said. Where do you go? She asked. Here, he said. The university, right across the street. Congratulations, she said. That's a good school. I like it, he said. So, do you like music? Who doesn't like music? She asked. Right, he replied. He didn't seem to be embarrassed. So, I know I asked you to have coffee with me, but I thought also we could go to a show after. I know the guy at this place, and I talked him into letting us in. It's a cool place down in a basement. There's a band playing. They sound pretty cool. He said they're like Joy Division, but crossed with a jazz band. The singer's supposed to be great. Yeah, maybe, Laura said. He pouted. He looked endearingly disappointed. I just had plans to work out with my friend, Laura continued. Well, it's on the table, he said. Who else is going? She asked. No one, he said. Just us. Laura smiled. She had a puzzled look in her eyes. Okay, she said. I'm not saying no. He smiled too. He had warm eyes. You're very good looking, Laura said. She had large eyes and looked at him without blinking. You know where Joy Division got their name? He asked. I don't know Joy Division, Laura said. Oh, he answered. You know the Killers, though. Yeah? The Killers were into them. They covered a couple of their songs. You know that song Shadow Play? I think so, Laura said. Well, that's Joy Division. And the myth is they got their name from the Nazis. Supposedly, back at least one of the concentration camps, the Nazis would select out the pretty prisoners and put them in a special barracks. They called them the Joy Division because they didn't do normal camp work. They had to serve the Nazis sexually. Joy Division heard that story and they thought it was a good name, so that's where they got it. That's where Joy Division comes from, he said. Crazy, right? Laura did not look impressed. The Romantics continues. Get more, visit the story archive. It's the link on the top right of the homepage. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.